Hello. What if I tell you that there is this recipe book that has all the ingredients, the method, and the secret sauce to ensure corporate sustainability success? This recipe isn't meant for a utopian world. Rather, it's relevant for the challenging context in which we live today. Let me open this recipe book, and while we do that, let's do some context setting. Net zero, absolute zero, climate negative, climate positive, carbon neutral, climate neutral. There are enough and more variations of climate care commitments that one gets to see these days. And trust me, you'll see a lot more of these occupying headlines in the coming days. And while that's happening at one end, there's a growing expectation and impatience in some cases to see some real walk the talk kind of action. Essentially, the spotlight in the transition to zero agenda is shifting from the commit phase to the act phase. In fact, we are racing against time to act now and cannot afford to delay. The climate crisis is here, and how? In order to achieve the imperative carbon reduction and removal targets to slow down and hopefully avoid the global warming threshold of 1.5 degrees centigrade, the private sector has a key role to play. CXOs are devoting a new level of attention to climate action and view this as a bigger existential challenge than the coronavirus itself. This is obvious from the number of climate target commitments that have hit the headlines in the last couple of years. As things stand today, a third of the Fortune 500 companies have declared formal climate targets, carbon neutrality, SBTs, circularity, etc. There's a growing realization that goes well beyond regulatory or compliance requirements. In fact, transitioning to a sustainable business model is being looked at more like a growth driver. Let's make sure we clearly highlight that. In India too, the action is picking up speed, significantly more with larger Indian companies and Indian arms of leading global MNCs. The early majority, enthused with a growing focus on true ESG, have paved the way for the next batch of adopters and innovators among the corporate community. The tribe of responsible businesses is growing quite organically, and the trick now lies in getting the act right. In fact, the urgency of the situation is such that one can't bank on second chances. And so I will stretch it so far as saying getting the act right on first attempt is key. Let's make sure we appreciate this enough and more. In order to achieve this, one needs to be cognizant of two aspects while drawing corporate sustainability plans. Point 1. Sustainability is multidimensional and calls for a deeper assessment of various systemic elements at play. Sustainability dialogues today are no longer unidimensional and in fact are highly multi-layered. This is because of the fact that sustainability can be approached in multiple ways, and it is important that while we approach it from one dimension, we are not losing sight of the others. Sustainability initiatives today involve a diverse set of stakeholders who play their part in various capacities. Each of these segments bring in diverse perspectives and expectations, and therefore there cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach to sustainability. Sustainability initiatives benefit various parties, socially, economically, environmentally, etc., in a highly interdependent manner. Add to these benefits the fact that analysis of contextual data could provide insights that could help shape policies, both public policies and institutional policies. Further, the diversity in stakeholder demographics demands that sustainability services and products be tailored for each section. The demographics vary on various axes: age, income, geographic location, gender, etc. Sustainability initiatives of various scale can be taken up depending on availability of resources, monetary, human, and social capital. The initiatives can be either in individual capacities or institutional capacities, with each having good merit. This transition is fraught with practical challenges, most of which stems from the fact that the initiatives are attempted without a complete understanding and assessment of the outputs, outcomes, and impacts. These challenges need concerted efforts in most cases to be addressed in totality. The landscape of sustainability solutions and services is constantly evolving, with technology and think tank innovations being piloted, proven, and scaled. This makes the chances of green transitions brighter. It is this diversity in the sustainability and climate action space today that demands a deep awareness and contextual understanding before implementing any initiatives. Clearly, sustainability is a war to be fought on multiple fronts, and winning each of them is equally important. This is clearly a case of the chain being only as strong as its weakest link, and so one shouldn't leave anything to chance. Point 2. Sustainability solutions are contextual, and their relevance has to be ascertained after thorough due diligence. Let's explore this further through the perspective of a typical business operating in India. It must be noted that while we are taking an example of an Indian business, the underlying concepts can and should be given due consideration in any country. The Indian business context has a few significant differences compared to that of the global north, and so blind adoption of success models from the global north does not guarantee success in India. India is on an aspirational growth trajectory, and so are the businesses in the country. The expectations that the market constituents have from Indian businesses is that they tap into the growth potential while transitioning to the greener side. Bottom line, take a path that makes economic and environmental sense in equal measure. The relevance of any sustainability initiative can be determined based on the dynamics of the industry to which the corporate belongs. An aspect to consider about industry dynamic in India is that the Indian business story today is that of a significantly large and growing SME and startup ecosystem. To have each of them resonate with sustainability conversations requires a bespoke approach that fits their context. Indian policies and regulation space is in a state of flux and evolution. From the central bank's evolving views on green financing, EPR and CSR laws, the newly proposed transition from BRR to BRSR by SEBI, there is an ever-evolving policy landscape pushing the transition to sustainability in India. Indian economy sustains itself on a significant informal sector, quite unlike the blue-collar or semi-skilled profiles seen in the global north. This makes it challenging for the corporates, especially in the legacy hard-to-abate sectors, and public policymakers to plan a transition that is truly just to everyone impacted by it. Nevertheless, this needs due consideration. Finally, corporates have to ensure that a green transition in their business considers both institutional and individual behavioral transitions in tandem to ensure true impact. While the new age industries in India attract a significantly younger demographic, the traditional sectors still have workforce from the pre-millennial era. It is important to consider these demographic distinctions while planning the transition. Well, those are the two super important considerations for any corporate sustainability actions to achieve what is called true impact. Clearly, the distinct aspects of the Indian business context means that any corporate sustainability planning and execution exercises must consider them without trying to force-fit success models from the global north. Does that sound complex? Possibly yes. But then here's some good news. There are ways to approach this in a very well-structured and informed manner, such that this complexity is suppressed out of the equation. An abstract yet robust approach to this is reflected in the learn, act, achieve, celebrate approach. Let's discover this one stage at a time. Let's start with the learn phase. There is an increasing need to ensure that the level of awareness about sustainability is enhanced and remains current at the same time. This needs to happen across the stakeholder ecosystem. In order to achieve the best results in this phase, one needs to balance multiple techniques depending on the stakeholders under consideration. These could be referencing success or failure case studies, conducting materiality assessments to sharpen the focus areas, understanding constantly evolving regulatory and policy landscape from a sustainability perspective, studying industry and market movements towards green economy, engaging in direct sustainability dialogues with experts who've been there, done that, conducting training programs on relevant aspects of sustainability, and building knowledge of globally recognized corporate sustainability standards and frameworks. It is in the learn phase that one also gets an opportunity to baseline the current sustainability actions of the organization before starting on any implementation of initiatives or the broader roadmap. Having done that, now we enter the act phase. This is where rubber meets the road. It is time to put all the learning from the previous phase into action. This phase is marked by significant consideration of climate science while drawing and implementing plans. This is also the phase where doing it right finds its true meaning. It is very essential to support the intent to neutralize carbon emissions with an actionable sustainability roadmap that is sequential in neutralizing emissions. Avoid, reduce, remove, and offset. This essentially means that the best approach to take is to avoid, and offset should be the last resort, typically meant only to neutralize emissions that cannot be brought down at all. It is in this phase that one should also conduct life cycle assessments for product or service SKUs while including their value chain stakeholders in these exercises too. Regulatory requirements like CSR, EPR, etc. should be looked at from social, economic, and environmental lens in tandem. Further, it is in this ACT phase that employees should also occupy center stage to implement the roadmap. This can happen through a strong focus on their behavioral change and skills and capabilities building to support the low carbon transition. With that done, now we enter the achieve phase. This phase is marked by strong oversight on the initiatives implemented to track the outputs, outcomes, and eventually the desired impacts. It is in this phase one sees a validation of the results achieved through the initiatives in the previous phase. A strong monitoring and evaluation approach needs to be implemented to track the results achieved, including carbon footprint reduction. This phase is an opportunity to achieve verification by third-party certification or audit bodies. It also provides an opportunity to identify various milestones that the organization achieves in its roadmap and milestones achieved by individuals within its employee groups as they adopt sustainability at workplace and outside it too. Alongside this, the organization should also use this opportunity to adapt their offerings portfolio or create new offerings for the green or the blue economy. Finally, the results achieved during this phase should help the corporate entities complete their sustainability reporting obligations and ambitions like BRSR, GRI, CDP, SASB, etc. With all the hard work done in the previous phases, it is opportune to celebrate the results, the successes, and the learnings. Yes, the celebrate phase. The limelight in this phase is completely on the results of the journey thus far. It is important to capture the stories that matter, the best practices that worked, and even the practices that bombed. From corporates to individuals, from communities to value chain players, and of course the customers. Every success story needs due recognition and a pat on the back. The documentation and publication of such stories could help other players in the industry who can follow the lead. In fact, these stories and learnings could be a great ready reckoner as you keep progressing on the sustainability journey with more initiatives yourself. I must mention that there are times when the phases operate iteratively and not necessarily sequentially. Now, this is totally acceptable. All that one needs to be constantly appreciative of is that transitioning to a sustainability-centric business model is not a short-term target, and it is definitely not about one giant leap. It is important to progress in the right direction, one step at a time, and the right step each time. For the transition to achieve its desired results consistently, planning the transition is as important as executing the transition right. Any challenges during the transition, both during the planning and execution, can be brought down further by having the right skills, capacities, and capabilities in the team. Such skills and competencies should bring an understanding of the market trends, a clear roadmap of action, stakeholder-centric approaches, enablement through technology, and a systemic approach to problem solving. The good news is that the ecosystem of sustainability practitioners in India is growing by the day. Here is a quick highlight of the areas where we already have sustainability solution and service providers to join hands with the corporates while they ramp up internal skills and capabilities. With this understanding of the learn, act, achieve, celebrate journey, I hope we are clear of the steps in the recipe to ensure successful implementation of corporate sustainability roadmaps. At the same time, let's understand what makes for the important secret sauce in this recipe. Clearly, it is the coming together of the corporate ambition for green transition, the technical know-how of industry domain experts, and strong passion and knowledge of the sustainability practitioners, both internal and external, that gives us the best chance of avoiding the climate crisis downhill. It gives us the best chance of getting the act right on first attempt, and that is key. I hope this recipe book has given you enough reasons to approach your corporate sustainability agenda with confidence. Thanks for your time. Thank you.